Hi, welcome to the sewers. My name is Mono, short for monopenstatic. My current obsession right now is this really cozy show entitled Bee and Puppycat, which is the subject of today's study session. For a brief background, Bee and Puppycat is a show created and written by Natasha Allegri, whose name I think I just butchered, starting from a web pilot in 2013 and with the support from Kickstarter. A full season was released on YouTube from 2014 to 2016, if I'm correct. And Bee and Puppycat is a show I personally did not expect to find so endearing, because there is so much to love about this show, from the well-written characters to the great and interesting storyline. But what captured me the most is the art. The colors, the composition, the ambiance, the characters. Oh my gosh, I was floored. Well, you clicked on this video upon reading the title, so yes, I will be studying the art style of Bee and Puppycat, and I will be trying to implement some elements of the art to my own art style and to my own piece, which I will be drawing as I talk, and all the while giving you tips on how to implement some elements in your art style and how important studying art styles are in our journey as artists. Just a little disclaimer though, I am a beginner artist and I'm not really well versed in teaching art and stuff. I'm just a beginner, so technically you will be learning with me, the great sovereign of rats. It's a privilege that you access this video for free. Anywho, now I will be focusing solely on the YouTube series, not the Netflix reboot or the comic book adaptation, just to narrow things down. So now, let's get started. Okay, here is my canvas, although I already prepared a sketch here. Another disclaimer though, I am not an expert, so I am not really good with compositions, although I will be discussing it later, and I am not really good with shadows. I am not good with highlights, and I am definitely not good in rendering, although there's not much rendering in the art style of Bee and Puppycat, more on establishing the colors. And now we hop on our sketch. Okay, one thing about the art of Bee and Puppycat is that a lot of their compositions are very character-centric, and since they're very character-centric, there are a lot of scenes where these compositions are really well utilized. Like for example, in that final scene of Bee and Puppycat, you can see that not only it establishes the ambience of mystery, but it also establishes a feeling of discovery and anonymity, because you're only seeing their silhouettes and there's only the colors in the background that could tell you that they are still who they are in a sense. However, there is a story in the colors, which I will be explaining later. A lot of these compositions as well, they are very comforting, as it's in the art style of Bee and Puppycat that they are drawn very soft. It also adds in because of the color. It tends to focus on the roundness of the characters and the softness of their shapes. And another thing as well, the shots tell a great story. An example of another composition that I really like from the show is where they visited this planet, because you can immediately tell that something is gonna happen just simply based on that. Now you might have noticed that the composition is pretty simple as how I think it would really suit the scenario. It really just frames the character with a technique kind of reminiscent to the rule of thirds, because I position the character way far on the right to establish a scene, because this is based on a real experience of mine, of me kind of contemplating my life as an adult now. And so I kind of wanted to portray that scene of me wandering. You might have noticed that the bar and the curtains, they're pretty low, so if the character stands up, it's they're gonna hit their head. I would like for you guys to drop your interpretations on why this composition is made the way it is. And now we must head to the backgrounds. Now, one thing about the background of Bee and Puppycat is that they're very, very detailed. I'm telling you, they're so detailed. Like, look at that. The details on the shells, the details on the room. There's a lot going on in the scenes. And the characters, they blend in very much in the background. And it kind of takes away from the characters themselves because you're being like overstimulated by this amount of stuff going on in your, like, right by your eyes. And you can really focus on like the scene itself, or because the characters are talking, you can't really focus much on them because of the background just going straight at you. And don't get me wrong, the background is very mesmerizing. They make really great wallpapers, to be honest. And since speaking of the backgrounds, I personally won't be adding that level of detail in my own backgrounds, but the background is still very pivotal in storytelling. Now we can go to the colors. Now the colors are really homely in Bee and Puppycat, and they really add a lot on basically not just the ambiance but the characters themselves. You can kind of tell who's who based on their colors. Like, I can tell the character is Bee if like there's elements of yellow in her design. I think this is the greatest strength of the show because they play a lot with hues, but they don't play too much to the point that the colors are incomprehensible. They are always tied together and they always set the mood just right. And at the same time, the colors themselves, they tell a story. They tell a really great story. I don't want to spoil, but this is like my analysis on color on Bee and Puppycat. Okay. So you know that the scenes, a lot of scenes in Bee and Puppycat are very pastel-y colors, right? You can see like in these specific shots, in these shots, and these shots as well, that the colors are like very, very pastel, and they don't really tend to deviate from that except like when need be. But when they're like taking missions from temp, the colors are very neon-y because they're in space, and of course the color has to be very prominent since the background is pretty dark. When we go to like the scene in the arcade where she and Puppycat were like hanging on the arcade in Bee's birthday, the colors are also neon, which is like, But then when Deckard was like brought in the temp missions, and then when the black hole thingy attacks, Bee's color palette itself changed. You can see like there's change in her color, there's a change in her character as well to contribute to it. And it's one of the greatest storytelling strengths, the show, the way they utilize color to not only portray emotion but also portray change in the characters. It's really amazing. It's really, really smart. The colors also contribute to the softness of the characters themselves, and it complements the shapes a lot. Like you can see softer pastel-y colors matching like specific characters, while a bit more on the darker and more saturated side on these other characters. But in that specific scene that I was just ranting about, that scene kind of like just alters the storyline, and that's how pivotal the colors are in Bee and Puppycat. My idea for this piece, I will do like 2 light sources, and in the back, the light source will be colored blue, and the rim light will be yellow. Since we're on the business of color, I would like to make the characters look much more prominent than the background. And since we're like trying to adapt with the art style of Bee and Puppycat, I will also be going to a pastel route with this. Another one that I would like to address, since considering the art style of Bee and Puppycat, the line art, it's pretty thin, like you can see here. And since I'm simply just adding elements of the show's art to my own art style, and my art style has like a lot of thick lines you can see right there, And so I will simply be following like another technique that they use for their line art to match the pastel colors and basically the colors of the characters in the show, which is I'll be adding like a bit of color once I finish blending the entire scene for the ambiance, because I do not want the color to be like very starkly different from the rest. And honestly, and in my observation, I believe the reason why a lot of artists like color their line art, it's because so that the characters would blend more in the background. And that's exactly what I want to do for this piece. I want the character to not only just stand out, I want them to kind of like blend in at least. So there will be harmony in the piece, and at the same time, I think it just adds a little flair, you know? I don't think I've mentioned this, but a lot of like the colors that I've used here kind of like range with the color white in the color wheel. I specifically chose colors close to that, but for the background I chose like colors like really close with black, just so there will be like something dividing the foreground and the background, and at the same time so the character in the middle will be much more prominent and the background will be supporting their appearance. Although fret not, because I will be blending the rest of the foreground with the background. So it's not really guaranteed that the colors will stay pastel. It would be more like they will be altered in hue, just so they can cater with the appearance of the background, because it does look off-putting if the background is like very dark and the rest is like pretty pastel, unless you're using colors as a storytelling device and it is intentional. I think it is good, but in this case I would like to really get into the vibe of the art of Bee and Puppycat, which is it's very ambient. It blends into each other, it cases you, and it's very homely and comforting in that way. And now that we have finished the drawing itself with a lot of dilly-dallying in the middle, here is the finished product. I really hope you learned something from this video, and please never stop trying to learn, okay? Never stop trying to learn art. So do not be afraid to start something. Do not be afraid to share your art, because you inspire, okay? You inspire. And if Bee and Puppycat can instill so much emotions in a viewer and leave that kind of impression to the viewer just simply because of the art, you can too. Okay, once again, this was Mono, and I will see you in my next video.